Hello, everyone. This is Armstrong Williams on the right side. Armstrong. Don't curse, speak English. Armstrong. Virtuous society. Armstrong. I dare you to listen. Hey, turn it up. Hey. Armstrong. Get on the right side. Armstrong. Elevate your mind. Armstrong. I'm Armstrong Williams on the right side. Armstrong. Hey, yo, man, it's your boy K.O. And you're tuned into the most conservative of our brothers. Armstrong. The Armstrong Williams Show. Please give me a break. Grow up. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the Armstrong Williams Show, another edition of the show. Wow, one of our most popular shows, riveting, thought-provoking. The elder chicks, and I'm sure when they're preparing for the show, they have no idea what they expect, so they just leave themselves open with their life body of works. Dr. Fleisher, Dr. Reese, welcome back to the show.
Oh, good morning, Armstrong. How are you? Good evening, yes.
I am fantabulous, if there's such a thing. Can you tell I'm excited?
I can tell. I can hear it in your voice.
I am just as thriller. I want to get into something with you icons for the first. Of course, that's what you are. We always define what people are by what we write, by what we say, and people believe it.
Oh, dear.
Did you not know that? We create the symbols and images of people.
Yes, we do.
Of course we do. We do it all the time, and people buy into it. Says a lot more about us than it does about them. But here's what I want to get into. This is a very, very sensitive topic, especially for me. I had a friend visit me last evening. This just happened. And he had just returned from Philadelphia, a place that's very close to the heart of, I guess, Dr. Thelma Reese. And he was telling me that he had been at the hospice for the last several days because his grandmother, who was 98 years old, was dying. He said, Armstrong, I saw her 2 weeks ago, and literally her face has shrunk in 2 weeks, and she lost almost 20 pounds. He said, it was unbelievable. How could this happen? He said, she's been with this family. His father is an only child. She lost her husband 15 years ago, and she had a stroke. After she lost her husband, the father decided, and he was definitely not a caretaker, had no idea what to do. But because he was an only child, and it was just he and his mother, and they had only had one, he and his wife had only had one child, there's no way, there was not even a contemplation of putting his mother in a convalescent home. So he decided to become a caretaker, on-the-job training. But anyhow, she had a stroke 2 or 3 weeks ago. They took her to the hospital, and she just deteriorated. Given that you both are in your golden years, and when you think about your husbands and your generation, I know you look around you and that people were with you a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or maybe months ago, are no longer there. And I won't say that it's the harshness of life, but the bed of life is that man and woman is born, and there's an appointed time of their death. And what I like to talk to you both about is, how do you prepare the children, the grandchildren, the friends for death? And can you ever prepare someone for, do you really know what's going to happen in that moment? And let me tell you, this was a young man who just had twins 7, 8 years ago, in the prime of his life. He has a fabulous job, and he was so devastated. I have never seen him so feeble and yet so vulnerable. And obviously I had to say something right, because when he left, he just thanked me. And something that men never do, they never really embrace other men. He hugged me with a tear in his eye, and I realized it wasn't not a hug of bonding. It was as if he just needed somebody to hug him who understood what he was enduring. Dr. Fleisher?
The question is, how do we prepare our children, our grandchildren, ourselves?
How do you handle it? How do you embrace the fact that someday you and Dr. Reese, your husband, won't be here? How do you address that? When you think about health care, when you think about life, how do you prepare, sort of make preparations for the inevitable?
Well, I think the immediate answer is we don't. We know that we're going to die, but somehow it is something in the future, and I'm not sure that I do embrace it. I like to think I do, but it is it's very, very painful to look death in the eye when you're healthy. I faced that with my husband, who did die, and we did need to face it at one point. It was very, very difficult. Very difficult. I like to think that I can say things. I'm not sure how I would be emotionally when confronted with my own death. I like to say and to feel that I have done as much as I can do to make my life as full as I can, but of course we always fall short at that. No matter what we are doing, we feel we could be doing more. But actually facing death is very difficult, particularly when it confronts you. I wish I had a more substantial answer.
Well, let's go back to your husband. When he was in the prime of his life,
yes.
And then you began to witness his deterioration, and then when you were told by the doctor that he didn't have time, and then when it actually happened, and then when you buried him, and then you had to come back and face that house to yourself.
Facing life independently was easier. It was really a matter of 2 years of deterioration. And actually, he was the one who forced me to confront it. He used to say that I was denying the inevitable. So that he helped me face that. I would say that because of his deterioration and the pain that I had to see him in, and the indignities of dying slowly, I have to say that what we were doing was grieving during the last 2 years of his life, so that when he actually died, at that time I was more prepared to face death than had he died suddenly. Does that make sense?
Obviously, this is a very difficult topic for you, and not something that you are accustomed to talking about, especially public. So it's not a matter of whether it's all right or not. You just say what you feel, and eventually you will get to the point you're trying to make. Yeah.
Well, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that when you said, well, what about after the finality of his death, when I had to come back to an empty house? It was extremely difficult, but that I was prepared for, because we had grieved for 2 years. So instead of grieving 2 years after he died, which is something that many people go through, is a period of grieving. After the death, we had grieved together before he died. But by the time he died, I was prepared to take on the rest of my life, and I've talked, sort of debated myself many times. Would it have been better for to have been? Is it better to be shocked by a sudden death and then forced to face it immediately, or is it better to go through a grieving period with the person you're grieving? And it's not an easy answer. I would say that it was watching the pain was the most painful thing I've ever had to live through. Doing this together.
What experiences, before we go to break and then we come back to Dr. Reese, could you share to help others?
I would say talk about it. My husband forced me to talk about it and to face the fact that he was soon to die. And I was not very willing to do that. I kept trying to insist that he do things that perhaps he couldn't do easily because I wanted to keep his spirit, his elan, because he was a very vibrant guy, going as long as possible. And I thought the way to do that was to be involved in things, and there were times he was just too tired, and so afterwards he would say, "Well, thank you for forcing me to go there." so that was a bit of justification. But
Dr. Bobby Fleisher, we're talking about facing death. We're coming back to Dr. Thelma Reese. I'm Armstrong Williams. Thank you for listening. We'll be back.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.RightSideWire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.RightSideWire.com.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933. Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
We're talking about facing death. We heard from Dr. Bobby Fleisher. Dr. Thelma Reese?
I'm here.
Your thoughts?
There are a few things I want to say about this. Unfortunately, my husband is still with me, but I've been through the death of my mother, and I'm thinking about your friend and what you said about him, Armstrong. And I think your friend is going to come through this fine. The loss is so terrible, and it does take time to get over. But he will have the satisfaction of knowing. And my mother was a month short of 97 when she died. And she had said to me, she was still living on her own, and she had said to me a few times, "Don't worry, I'm ready." And she said that to comfort me, because she knew that if she was going to not going to be here forever, and she was getting quite old. And she was right to tell me that, because we know that none of us will live forever. And how we face that end, I think, matters so much to the people around us, the people who love us. And your friend will know that he did what he could, that he did everything he could for his mother, which is a wonderful feeling to have, to know that you were really doing the best you could, that you loved the person. This is the gift. I think this is the gift. It always takes time afterwards to adjust to that loss. The loss is terrible, but it's inevitable. Everybody's going to do it. With my mother, it was that she was so old, we knew this would be coming. If anybody grew old gracefully, she did. But I also lost one of my dearest, closest friends, who went through years, younger than I, went through years of dying, with her most devoted daughter there, and having her in her home, and having hospice care even in her home. And that, too, was a great learning experience for me, because toward the end, all you could do was go there and hold her hand. But it meant so much to all of us to be able to do that, to still have her there, even when she wasn't conscious anymore. And it was a gradual going away. And she's very missed, but she was treasured by everyone around her. So it can happen, as Bobby was saying, it may be a sudden loss, and that's one kind of trauma. And the other is this slow grieving process that happens before the person goes. And that, too, has its learning period for us, and a prior kind of adjustment, and coming to grips with the fact that life is finite. And while I may say, and mean it sometimes, that I still talk to these people in my head, I have no way of knowing if they're really listening. But I like to think that maybe they can.
Obviously, this is very touching for me, because I lost my father, and it was sort of quick, but I was just thinking, sometimes you never know where these ideas, they just pop in your head. But I was just thinking, because I was listening to two mothers just now, Dr. Fleisher and Dr. Reese, and and what comes to mind to me is that a child comes into this world bringing joy and happiness into all the near and dear ones, and even the mother who had to bear extreme labor pains is pleased and so delighted to behold her newborn child. And she feels that all the trouble and pain borne by her were so worth it when she looks in the eyes of that child. And however, something we never think about, and I thought about this for the first time listening to both these mothers today, is that by crying, the child seems to suggest it too has its share of suffering for coming into this world. The child grows into an adolescent and later into an adult, performing all sorts of good and bad deeds, and they eventually grow old and finally bids farewell to this sorrow. And, it's interesting. Such is the nature of existence of a human being. People try to evade and escape from the clutches of death, but no one is able to do so. And at the moment of death, they have their minds hovering over their hoard of acquired wealth, unduly worried about their dear and children surrounding them, and their wives or their husbands or a friend. And then last but not least, they keep evincing sort of much concern over their own precious bodies, which, believe it or not, despite the tender care and attention that Dr. Fleisher spoke about, lavished by them, are so worn out, decaying and exhausted. I saw it in my father. Dr. Reese saw it in her mother. It grieves one's heart to separate oneself from the body. But it is the way most people take leave in this world, with moans and groans. The pangs of death are considered dreadful. Dr. Reese kept saying terrible, but she wants to say dreadful. An attitude fed by something that sometimes we lose sight of. We're disturbed not by external things, but by beliefs and imaginations we conjure up in our minds with regard to the form of the future lives. And so death, for example, is not by itself dreadful or terrible or bad or awful, except if it's murder or rape or something that is very tragic in my mind. Because to die in old age after living such an incredible life, and you look at the offsprings and the contributions that you made, it's not a bad thing. The dread of terror only exists in our minds, and it is not often that we are brave enough to come face to face with the thought of our own mortality. Insistence upon the truth of suffering may seem horrible and bad, as Dr. Reese spoke of, and how Dr. Fleischer found trouble sometimes finding the words, and unacceptable to the mind, which is unable sometimes to face realities. But it certainly helps to reduce or eliminate the dread or fear by knowing how to face death. And once life is launched, like a bullet, think about it, like a bullet, it rushes to its destination. And that's what death is like. And realizing this, we must bravely face that natural occurrence to be considered free in life. It's the only way we can be considered free in life. We must also be free from the fear of death, for fear only comes to those who are not able to comprehend the laws of nature. And whenever fear arises, it rises in the fool, not in the wise man. And we needlessly frighten ourselves with imagined or anticipated horrors, which really never come to pass. And so what we have to do is always realize that it always seems to be a major tragedy that so many people go through life haunted by the fear of this thing we call death, only to find when it comes that it is as natural as life itself. For few are afraid to die when they get to the very end. And in all my experiences, and I saw it with my father, only one seemed to feel any terror, and it is a woman who had done her sister a wicked thing, which was too late to put it right. It's only when you die with regrets, not speaking to your kids, you kill somebody and you take that to the grave with you, only then. But other than that, Dr. Fleischer and Dr. Reese, death frees you. It frees you. Something else grows when something dies. Dr. Fleischer?
Yes, I do agree with that. I think that there are two things. A person can become their loss, or they can grow from their loss. I think that is something that I certainly learned after my loss, which was extreme. And I think that is true. And I think that I also agree with you that the moment of death is not painful. It can be very peaceful. I saw that as I watched my husband draw his last breath. The last day was peaceful. It was absolutely peaceful, and he was ready, and so that helped me become ready at that moment.
Dr. Reese?
I think I love what you said, Armstrong, because that's looking at it from our vantage point and accepting our own mortality. And I think that's absolutely crucial in life, is accepting our own mortality.
Hold that point. Dr. Thelma Reese, Dr. Bobby Fleisher, and we are facing death. And it's not all bad. But it's easy to talk about it, I guess. We'll be back with Dr. Reese. Don't go away.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.RightSideWire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.RightSideWire.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
Dr. Reese, please continue.
What I was about to say was that what you were talking about, which I think is so important, is our own attitude toward our own mortality. We also focus in elder chicks on the survivor and how the survivor deals, as you have said, when you come back to the empty house or you have to go on with your life without the person you've lost. In cases where it was a natural thing of great old age, that's one thing. You eventually you certainly accept it. You know it's going to happen, and it happens in a natural kind of way. But what happens to you? How do you deal with the loss? That's something else. And I've seen people be very philosophical and even take on, I've heard people say this, and I know some have done it, that it has helped them to think about a characteristic of the person they've lost and try to incorporate that into their own life. And I find myself doing that sometimes now with my mother, who's gone for quite a while. I mean, this is more than 10 years. And yet, I will now realize sometimes in dealing with other people, you know, my mother would have said, or my mother would have done a certain thing. And if it was something that I really treasure and admire, I try to do it. And I find it sometimes informs my own attitudes or how I will deal with situations. And I think it's wonderful that it comes back to me now. Some of the things that I may not have realized I was noticing about her, and I appreciate now when I think about it, and I try to incorporate it to my own life, my own behavior. And I think we can sort of keep these people with us in that way, and that helps us live in a better way, too.
Yes, Dr. Fleisher, you know, it just seems like this is so. I feel you. I feel Dr. Reese. It is amazing when you talk about this subject, how you can feel the spirit of everybody around you. Isn't it amazing what it can do in terms of the bonding? Because we all can relate to it.
Yes, we can. We all, of course, we can all relate to it because it is part of living.
Yes. Yeah, and listen, it reminds us every second live, because it will soon pass. And that's what I love about Elder Chicks, is that you all are not preparing for death, because that'll take care of itself.
That's right. That's right. It will take care of us.
Yes. But what you got to do is live until that moment comes, and that's what you're doing. And you're living by empowering elder chicks, preparing them for all aspects of life.
Well, we're trying. We certainly are trying.
Well, I mean, we've got a lot of emails from the last show, but what I'd like for you all to do is talk about Elder Chicks and exactly talk about the buffet of things that you offer, how it was founded, and the difference that it makes in people's lives, the kind of emails and the feedback you get from what you guys started together just from an idea. Dr. Reese, we'll start with you.
Well, really, for me, this started because, hey, all of a sudden, I'm getting older. I'm one of those people I used to think of as an older woman. How did that happen? And with my friend and former colleague, Dr. Fleisher, we had conversations about this, and we noticed that some people do it well, and some people don't. Well, what is it that these people who are doing it well know that the others don't? And what is it that they're doing, and what can we tell each other? And we don't really have, we have role models for many things in our lives, in our parents, but our mothers did not live the kinds of lives that we have been living and that we're seeing now. I mean, the changes in the culture, the changes in the world, what technology has brought, has made such a difference, and these differences are just happening so fast. I sometimes say, when I just think that my mother never owned or wore a pair of slacks. She never got on an airplane without being a little bit dressed up. She had a different attitude about how she should look, how people should behave, and yet she remained very modern in her thinking. But she didn't have the opportunities that I've had and that many of those women made sure their daughters had and that our daughters have had beyond us. So there was no real roadmap for how women should be because they're living longer. My mother was fortunate that she did live long, but she was an exception. Now, just demographically, the changes are enormous. People are living longer and healthier, and they've got all these years in which to do something and not just sit in a rocking chair. That era is over, where you reach 65 or 70 and somebody gave you a rocking chair, maybe metaphorically, but sometimes in reality, and you were expected to just sit and take it easy. We've still got plenty to do.
Dr. Fleisher, what is it that, what is the spark in terms of the elderly? Talk about the things that they really contribute that are so often overlooked. We talk about the seniors, we talk about the elderly, but they are still doing some remarkable things, even in their golden years.
Yes. Well, one of the obvious things that they have is wisdom. They've lived a long time. They've survived life. They can put things in perspective. They know what's important and what is not really very important. And this is something they can impart to other people. They also have confidence to do things, to participate in society that that has to do with expectation. They can expect more of themselves, and with the energy they can give more of themselves. What can they do? They write memoirs. They tell the young what their lives were like, what they've learned in life by writing it down. They certainly can do lots of volunteering for folks that need help. They can take the skills that they've developed all their lives and give back, give it back freely to others who need it. There's just no shortage of opportunities for older people to contribute to society. It's a matter of looking. If you look, you'll find places, people, organizations that need you. There's much that can be done, and they're doing it.
Armstrong, let me just tell you something, because she probably won't, that Dr. Fleisher has done, because aside from all the other things, every once in a while somebody will say, well, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure what I could do. And she and a friend went to a school near where they live and said, we know how to knit. Do you have a few kids in this middle school who might like to learn? And so they go to this school every week, and they have a little group, which now I understand sometimes includes boys. And they teach these children to knit in very small groups. And you know what happens when you're sitting and knitting together? Kids start to talk to you. And they're able to talk about things that they probably don't often get to talk to older adults about. This is a wonderful win-win situation for everybody.
Well, thank you for mentioning that, Thelma, but I think it's also important that these kids who are in this group are kids who, in many cases, are on their way through the juvenile justice system.
Wow, that's impressive.
Anybody could do that. They can do it anywhere that they're listening to this program.
But it's being done. That's the key. You know, I want to say this as we go out, because the next segment, to me, the last segment, is a very critical one. And I wanted to talk about this sometime. I was going to save this for our taping next week with Dr. Reese and Dr. Fleisher. But I think it's important to talk about it today, because financial fraud is the fastest growing form of elder abuse. Financial elder abuse is when someone illegally or improperly uses a vulnerable senior's money or other property. And most states now have laws that make elder financial abuse a crime and provide ways to help the senior and punish the scammer. But it happens too often. We want to talk about a different kind of abuse as it relates to elders. I'm Armstrong Williams. We'll be back.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.RightSideWire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong-Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.RightSideWire.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Whether it's their impact on prison guards, law enforcement officials, business executives, employees, or marriage and relationships, Lorette is dedicated to changing the individual and institutions around the globe. Lorette's diverse network and training courses can help provide you with the tools you need to both wisely and confidently lead, manage, and supervise yourself as well as others. Lorette Business Network, a proven system for achieving success in your business and life. Please visit their website and begin this life-lasting journey with Lorette today. www.lorette.org.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
You know, this is so personal to me because, you know, people call and try to scam my mother, who's 86, and she'll call me and my brothers immediately. She's just that smart. But let me just tell you, elder financial abuse is tough to combat, in part because it often goes unreported. And let me tell you why. Many elderly victims are often too confused, and I'm not saying that in a condescending way, fearful, or embarrassed by the crime to report it. And I've got to tell you something. There was a report by the Consumer Digest that estimated that there are at least 5 million cases of this financial abuse in this country each year, and law enforcement officials learn about only 1 in 25 cases. You've got to protect yourself and your loved ones from financial elder abuse by becoming familiar with the most common scams and learning what to do if you suspect foul play. We're going to start with you, Dr. Fleisher.
Of course that you have to do this. I know of somebody who was appalled that she went to a parking lot with someone who took money for her to fix her car and then disappeared and never came back and never fixed the car, and she never saw the money. And what you're saying about her embarrassment is absolutely true. She was so embarrassed that she couldn't talk about it for months, and finally it did come out. But of course, it was far too late. That she would be so stupid as to do that. Well, people, con artists, are artists. They are able to convince you that they're kind and on the up and up. Yes, you must protect yourself against that. You must be aware of that. It's a horrible situation.
And you know, Dr. Reese, and sometimes it's your own relative. I mean, they target these elderly people that they perceive to be vulnerable, those that are sort of isolated, lonely, physically or mentally disabled, really unfamiliar with handling their own finances, or have recently lost a spouse. And they pose themselves, they bring themselves into their lives as some trustworthy helper. And they can be strangers, such as telemarketers and tradespeople, or have a relationship with the targeted victim, such as friends, family members, doctors, lawyers, accountants, and paid or volunteer caregivers.
Absolutely. This can happen, pardon me, to anybody. And it's the vulnerability. We can't prevent all of this by any means, just as we can't as people prey on younger people too, but the elderly are so much more vulnerable, especially if they're alone. And that's one of the reasons too that it's so important for family members and people who feel close to older people to stay in touch and try to convince them that it's okay for them to tell them about all kinds of matters, that financial matters shouldn't be secret between them, so that it's okay, as you say, your mother calls you and your brothers and says, somebody wants to sell me something, and so she is smart enough to do that without just assuming that she should go ahead with something like that. All of us need that kind of advice.
You know what's sad? You know what's really crazy? You know, for me, I can be quite volatile when it comes to something like this. I will not kid you, okay? But it's just so amazing that they can go to these elderly people with paperwork, making it seem as though they have some legal authority act, like power of attorney, authorizing signatures for credit cards, and these crazy vehicle pink slips, and some work at a bank or other financial institutions and have intricate ways of hiding their tracks by manipulating electronic records that they have access to.
You know, the key, the only real protection probably is for someone to know, is to let our elders know that they're not alone in any kind of decision like that. Mom, if somebody is offering something financially and it looks very good, it may be, but please let's always look at it together. And so
very good.
You can weigh in when someone is approaching an elder parent or a relative or friend and trying to scam them. And it's very hard to see, and it takes another pair of eyes. You know, you can't be resistant to these people alone. You always need somebody else really helping, and it's the isolation that is the worst enemy of the elderly.
That is why we're talking about it, because there's someone listening to this show is being scammed right now, or something happened to them. Embarrassment, you allow this person to continue their behavior where they hurt innocent people. And you know what I think about, sometimes, this is the other thing, we have so much to talk about going forward. Sometimes because of what I do in terms of media, I have private care physicians and nurses who call me from these convalescent homes, and they tell me how these elderly people are abused and treated by these caregivers. Are you kidding me? It is terrible, and it exists, and we cannot squirm and pretend that it does not exist.
No, that's true. true. That is a terrible abuse. Mm-hmm.
And exposure is our only weapon.
Mm-hmm.
We have to expose it every time we see it.
And that's what we're doing. And that's exactly why I wanted to bring this up about the scamming, the elderly abuse. They are so vulnerable, Dr. Fleisher and Dr. Reese.
Yes, that's true.
So because it takes an outsider to expose, they're not going to expose their own institution because they want to protect their jobs, themselves, and so on. But it takes somebody outside who sees what's going on to be the whistleblower. But I think you're absolutely right. The elderly who are abused in these institutions can't speak up. It's not in their power to speak up, or presumably they would or they might. It's outsiders who have to do that when they see it.
And I tell you the saddest part to me, strangers abusing and hurting elderly people, but when it's your own children and all they care about is having access to your assets, your money, and they just want you to go away. I mean, what has happened to this world?
Yes. And believe me, it goes on. We do see it. We do hear of it. And we do see some elderly people. I just heard of someone I've known for years. She's a brilliant woman, studied philosophy at the University of Chicago when she was young, raised a marvelous family. She's now had to be put into a situation where she has constant care with Alzheimer's. So we do have to be observant of the older people around us and recognize when they do become, if they do become vulnerable. And it can happen to the brightest among us. It can happen. And when it does, then we have to assume the role of protector.
Defender. Okay.
Defender, right.
Well, look, they know my brothers and I are crazy, okay? Please. And you know what? Sometimes you have to put the fear of God in people. You don't want to mess in this house. No.
Right.
No.
I feel sorry for the people who do not have children or whose children are far away and cannot see what's going on, the theft, the abuse.
But the thing about it for me, I talk to my mother 4 or 5 times a day. I'm always in constant contact with her because you know what? That is my duty because anything can change in an hour. I know a lot of people say I can't do that, but you know what? Long distance doesn't cost you anything anymore. It's free.
Right.
It's free.
Hi, Mom. How are you doing?
Everything okay?
Right.
Anything peculiar went on today?
I'm watching, Mom.
Yeah, and then you could put cameras in the house and monitor from your computers.
Yeah.
Well, and when people are in care facilities, and they know you call every day, they know they're not going to bother a mother whose kids are on their case every day, calling them and talking to them. Unfortunately, they'll go to somebody more vulnerable, more available to them, who don't have somebody watching over them. But yes, that's what we need to do. We need to watch over our parents.
Yes.
When they get into a situation where they can't watch over themselves.
Yeah, I would rather somebody scam and take advantage of me than my parents. I'd rather it happen to me any day.
Of course.
Because, it really hurts them deeply. It's a very emotional thing for them.
Yes, because they've spent their lives looking out for you. And so for this to happen, it just shatters their whole image of themselves and what they've been. And to have to recognize their own vulnerability and dependence is a terrible.
You know what? We are out of time. What another wonderful. We covered so much today. What a wonderful discussion. And we ended on a high note.
Don't we?
We should call this show "Never Anticipate What to Expect."
You're right.
Just show up. Dr. Fleisher, you hear the music. Dr. Fleisher, Dr. Reese, again, thank you so much for joining us. All the best.
Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
High Point University has experienced unprecedented growth during the worst economic disruption in decades. This growth is driven by a university that focuses on holistic education, on experiential learning, and on values-based living. At High Point University, every student receives an extraordinary education in an inspiring environment with caring people. See what makes High Point University extraordinary at highpoint.edu.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org. Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
The sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get the Henrys at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.